Hi guys. Today in today's video, I'll be focusing on unit standard 749 and unit standard 9007. 7469. The title of the unit standard is Use Mathematics to Investigate and Monitor the Financial Aspect of Personal and Community Life. So we've got income and expenditure, money that comes into primary categories. The money that we receive, which comes in, it is income, and the money that we spend, it pays out, which is our expenses. So these are just the type of income and expenditure. So in income, it is simply all the money that comes in. Money that comes in for individuals may be in the form of a salary, a wage, overtime, bonus, and maintenance. So when you go through your learner guide, it'll talk about more in detail how these features are within the income. So just please go through your learner guide. There's no much calculation into it. They just explain the principles of income and expenditure. Moving on to the next slide, we've got expenses that are the money we spend or pay out. There are numerous expenses that individuals have in their everyday life, such as personal tax, VAT, unemployment insurance fund, pensions or provident fund, medical aid, medical expenses, water, and light. So these falls under the category of expenses. So moving on to the next slide, we've got budgets. A budget is nothing more than a plan of how to use money. The objective of a budget is to ensure that you spend less than you earn. Income versus expenses. You keep as much money for yourself, which is retention, and save money for a rainy day, which is investment. So the good thing is in your learner guide they give you examples. It's not much hectic, and on your formative assessment you will be asked to provide a budget plan. So just go through your learner guide. It explains or it unpacks in terms of budget how you should do. So I'm just highlighting these important aspect within budget and how to plan a budget. So your monthly budget is a plan of how you intend to spend your income that you earn every month of every week. It shows how much you earn and how much you need to spend and pay out every month. So if you are single, then your budget does not necessarily show many expenses, but if you are married and have children, the picture is different. You are responsible for the financial well-being of other people. So this is quite important, and most people are faced with this. And in terms of planning your budget, it becomes difficult, planning your budget based on what you earn. For instance, with your stipends, planning is something else. I just wanna, just take up an example that extract an example from Melena guide just to go through your budget. So what I will do, I'll just go straight to your learner guide and extract the example and just go through that and create our own. Okay, so let's on your learner guide on page 124, there's an example of comparing a budget of an individual to a company. So the company, this individual Henry works for this company, and he gets paid 1,500, and the profits of this company is about 1.5 million. So what we'll do, we'll create our own budget uh, based on the stipend that you receive. So I'll do that. Okay, so now I'm creating a budget based on this is just an example. this is just an example based on the stipend that you receive. Precisely, let's say the stipend that you receive is 5,000, and let's just unpack the expenses that you have on a month-to-month basis. So the first thing that we need to include is data. So you spend about minimum 500 for data, for argument's sake. And also, what else? Let's just okay, let's say for instance you buy food at home, you buy food, and that will be about, let's say, 1,005. And also you contribute for lights, 1,000, since yeah. And what else? You use the internet cafe. Let's say 500. Let's say 500. So this will be it. So this will be it in terms of the expenses that you have. Let's calculate these expenses that you have in a month-to-month basis. 500 plus 1.5 plus 1,000 plus 500. So the expenses that you make in a total is 10,500. So now what we want to do, we want to calculate, we want to retain, check the money that you retain from your income. So in this instance, what you will do, we'll take the total money that you have, which is 3,500. We need to divide that by the total money that you receive, your income, which is 5,000. We need to times that by 100. That will give you the percentage of the money that you retain, your income. And when you do that, you'll take 3,500 divided by 5,000 times 100. So it'll give you 70. So you'll only retain 70% of your income. So this is just basically how mathematical calculation are involved in terms of budgeting. It's not much hectic. It's not hectic that much, but it's more of how you plan on how you budget in terms of what you earn. So moving on to slide 35. Okay, we've done with the example of a budget now, so let's go into planning of a budget. So a budget planning is the preparation that is made to ensure that current and future financial commitments are determined and organized into a suitable order. When planning a budget, there are few guidelines to keep in mind. The first one, you need to know how much comes in every month, how much money comes in every month. uh, the second one is, what money must I pay out that is absolutely essential for me to live. like your, i.e., your food, home expenses like buying toiletries and so forth. Also, what money will I use for to pay things that I want, but I do not need to live, like your clothes, those that drink beer, those that go outings and so forth. And also, what money must I put aside for a rainy day when something goes wrong, like when things go wrong inside the house, where you have your sewage block or geyser burst, medical emergencies. What I can relate with this is that few weeks ago I had an issue with the geyser where I live. So I had to, take out money from my pocket in terms of fixing that. So those are things that you need to put aside money for. And also, what money can I put away for my future? So this is more of saving. You know, it's good for you to save. You know that you're saving for future, and also any good budget will clearly show that the balance between money which is coming in and money out, and money growing, which is the invest and putting more money for future. So these are just how, in terms of planning a budget, and the example that we went through, it's a way of how you should unpack your salary, how you should plan your budget, and so forth. So yeah, that's it in terms of budget uh, and how to plan it. So move on to the next slide, which is simple interest. It's in slide 36. So this is totally different compared to what we were doing earlier. So simple interest is interest that is earned on an amount over a long period and calculated at the end of the periodic table. So we have a formula for that, and the formula it's P times T times R, which is you divide R, your interest value, by 100. So this is your formula for simple interest. So I'll just go through an example with you. Let's say you are given 5,000. Uh, you are given 5,000, and in this 5,000 that you are given, you are supposed to pay. Uh, you are supposed to pay interest at if you have your interest. Let's say you've got these values, which is your, we've got your initial amount, which is your principal amount that we have. This is our principal amount, and also we've got our interest rate at 7%, and also we've got years, which is 5 years. We've got 5 years, which refers to T, and we are asked to calculate the money in interest rate. So let's say I'm just giving you a scenario. Um, you are given these values: your principal amount, your interest rate, and the number of years, the time in which you need to pay. So you have a bond and you pay this amount for a bond, and within 5 years you pay the bond at an interest rate of 7% per simple interest. And you are asked to how much money will you pay in interest for the next 5 years. So the first thing that you need to do, based on what you have the values, so our formula is, we've got your I we've got your I, which is your interest that you need to calculate. for the next 5 years. And also you've got your P, which is your principal amount, and you've got your R, which is your the rate that you have, and the T that you have. So what you need to do, you need to substitute the values that you have. The principal amount, you've got 5,000. The interest rate that you have, it's 7 divided by 100 divided by 100, and the time that you have for 5 years, you'll have to and when you calculate that, it will give you 1,750. So we managed to find the interest rate that we have. So now the question is, for how long will you pay the interest rate for 5 years? So what we need to do, you need to use this formula, where we take the amount that we need for 5 years, the interest rate. So we will take the principal amount that we have. In this instance, the principal amount that we have is 5,000. We're going to add with the money that we and that will give us 5,000 plus 1,750. That will give us 6,750 for the next 5 years. So this is the interest rate that you will pay for the next 5 years. So that's it in terms of simple interest. Now you just have to play around with the formula that you have. So this formula with the one that I've derived, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. There's nothing complicated with it. The 5,000, it's the value or the principal amount that you have. In order for you to derive your interest rate, you need to divide as given your rate, your interest rate by 100. It will give you a decimal number, which is 0.07, and your 5, it's in here. So you may find in some instances you may be given the interest rate, the amount that it's given, and you are supposed to calculate the time or the principal value or the rate. So you just have to work out your calculation. In that instance, if you're given two values and if you haven't given one value, you just have to input the values. Let's say for instance, we are not let's leave interest rate for now. Let's say we're looking for time, and we only have, we're given this amount. Let me just, okay, we were given this amount, and so we will have to 5,000 7 over 100. So that will give you 350 T 1,750, and you'll have to divide everything by 350, and this side also you divide everything by 350. 350 will cancel 350, and you're left with T, and your answer 1.750 divided by 350. So you'll give you 5 times 10 to the power minus 3. That's like about 5%, like 5 years, not even 5%, so about 5 years. That's like 5 years, you know. It is the same as the one that we got, the same that we got from the initial amount, the initial years that we received. So this is how you use or work around in terms of the simple interest. So moving on to slide 37, we've got the compound interest. So the compound interest, this is the formula for compound interest, and we've got the values that are included within the compound interest. A, for instance, is the amount or the total value of the investment after a certain period. P is the principal value that is invested at the beginning of the period, and an R is the rate in percentage per annum, and an N is the number of periods, not necessarily years. So also other factors that we need to adhere to within a compound interest is that when the question or how they pose their question, you'll find that they'll mention your half yearly, your quarterly, your monthly, or daily. So what you need to understand, when they mention half yearly, always it has to be two. Half yearly, it means within a year there's 12 months. When you divide 12 by 2, it's half, it becomes 2. Half of 12, it's 2. So quarterly it's 4, and monthly it's only 1, because of it's in a month-to-month basis, and daily you include 365. So let's get into the example that I've extracted from your learner guide. So example 1, Richard invests 500 for 3 years at the rate of 8% per annum. Interest is compounded half yearly. So what you need to do, you need to factor out what you have. In this instance, we've got our principal value. Our principal value is 500, and also we've got half yearly, which is 2, and this is H, this is Y for half yearly. And also we've got years, the number of years, we've got the number of years, we've got 3 years, and we've got 8%. So let's work out based on the formula that we have. Based on the formula that we have, we've got the total value is equals to the P 1 plus R divided by 100 to the power n. This is the formula that we use for compound interest. So our P in this instance is 500. So now, since we have a ratio of 8 and we've got a half yearly, so what we need to do, half yearly, we need to times half times 8, which is your interest rate. That will give us 4, because of half yearly of the interest rate that we have annually. When you times that, it will give you 4. So we'll include 4 at the top, divided by 100 and because of its half yearly, we have to times 2 by 3. It will give us 6. And when you punch that into your calculators, 1 plus 4 divided by 100 to the power 6, our answer will be 632.65. So this will be our answer based on the question that we need to provide. Interest is compounded half yearly. So that is it. This will be our final value using the compound interest formula. So moving right along, we've got investments. Investments, it is money that is put away into a saving scheme so that it can grow and become more than the original amount, and then you need to add interest so that the money grows. So an investment can be for a short term, which is less than 6 months, or medium term 6 to 36 months, and long term, which is more than 36 months. So these are just principles of investment, and what you need to understand, logically. And also you've got inflation. Inflation is the average change in prices over a period of time. If our inflation rate is 15%, then it means that this time last year something that cost 100 rand will now cost 100 rand plus 15%, which will be 115. So this is how interest or inflation rather is all about. So let's go to your learner guide page 142. So in your learner guide page 142, it talks about assets. So an asset is an item that you can acquire and that has a fixed value. So you've got appreciation of assets. Some things you can buy can grow in value. When something grows in value after you bought it, it means that it appreciates or increases in value. So that is normally in property. So when you buy a house, it grows in value over the time or the number of years that you occupy that or live within that property. So to work out how much an asset appreciates, we first determine what the growth rate for such an asset is, and then we continue with working out its appreciated value. So for example, we've got Beggy has bought a house for 500,000, and he wants to know what this house will be worth in the next 5 years. So first he calls up a few local estate agent and ask how much properties have increased in value in this particular suburb over the past 5 years. So these are the findings that he gets. Agent 1 confirmed that it's worth over 10%, agent 2 that's 20%, and agent 3 15, agent 4 it's 12, and agent 5 it's 9%. So when we want to work an average, remember that we need to add all this and make out when you add all these percentages, it will give you 65. And when you divide 65, let's confirm. So how they got 13.2 is that they divided 65. They divided 65 by 5, it will give you 13.2. So then he uses this average of 13.2 to work out the appreciation of his property in 1 year. So they'll take out the value of the property, you times it by 13.2, it will give you 66,000. And also you'll have to finally he needs to calculate this by multiplying 66,000 by a number of years. So for 5 years it will give you 330,000 rands. So the appreciation of the property in 5 years will have to add 330,000 by 500,000. So in the next 5 years, the house will be worth 830,000 rand. So that's close to 1 million. So that's quite a lot, you know. Depends on how much you bought the house for. So working on to depreciation, it occurs more frequently than appreciation. Depreciation is anything that decreases in value, and the good examples of depreciation is motor cars, cell phones, computers, machinery, and equipment. So at the end of a financial year, companies calculate the depreciation of an item. So there are two ways of calculating depreciation. It's a fixed percentage of the original value and a fixed percentage of the yearly depreciation amount. So these are just uh, the the properties of how you should calculate your depreciation. You can just go through this. It's easier as is. There's nothing complicated. There's an example also. You just have to go through that. It's easier. So not no not no complicated calculations involved. You just have to go through the example and it will show you all of how they arrive to the answer in terms of depreciation. So that's it for this. Let's go back to our slide. uh, that's it with this unit standard. So we'll have to go to uh, unit standard 9007, which is work with a range of patterns and functions and solve problems. So we'll just go through that in a sec. So there's two things that you need to understand the difference between it. In your learner guide, they talk about a series. They talk about geometric patterns and number patterns. So just go into the learner guide in a sec. I just wanna uh, provide the differences between a geometric series and a sequence. So let's say, for instance, you're given a series of numbers like 3, like 3, 5, 7, and 9. So how can we determine that this is a series or a sequence? So in geometric, the difference is that the ratio, the common ratio, there's a common ratio that you find within the series that you have. So within a common ratio that we have, we've got a formula for common ratio, which is a a a 2 minus divided by a1. So in this instance, we need to take the second term and we need to divide it by the first term. So that's where you get the common ratio within it. So this is more of a series where we find a a a a, uh, the difference, or the common ratio within the series that we have. So a sequence is more of finding the nth term. Let's say, for instance, in this series, what we need to, based on the common ratio that we have, when we divide 3, when we divide 5 by 3, the common ratio that we have, it's 1.66. So let's confirm that this is indeed true, that when we take 7, when we divide the third term and the second term, let's see whether it will give us 7 by 5. It's 1.4. It's 1.4. Let's check whether the third term 9 divided by 7, it's 1.2. 1.2. So let's use the same formula, divide the second term and the first term. So it's 1 over, it's 1 over, it's 1.2, 1.4 divided by 1.66, it's 0.84, 0.84, taking the 1.2 divided by 1.4, it's 0.85. So it's more slightly, it's the same, 0.85, slightly the same. So we know that the common ratio for this series is 0.84. So what we can do in this instance, let's say maybe we are given a sum to say, maybe please, you are given a question to say you need to find maybe the 10th term, in this geometric sequence. So what you need to do based on the geometric sequence, you need to add this in terms of the numbers that you have. So now we know that using this formula to add these within the series, it will take time. So what we can do, uh, we can use a geometric sequence where we will manage to use this formula to determine the 10th term. So the formula for geometric sequence, it's a n minus 1. So it's a which is the first term. The first term is 3. The common ratio that we have, is 0.85. 0.85. We will be seeking for the 10th. We're seeking for the 10th. The 10th term minus 1. When you use a calculator, this will determinedly give us, this is for argument's sake, I just provided an example, just randomly created a series where we can just create, but in normal circumstances, they'll provide you a series that you'll be able to find not fraction numbers, but whole numbers. And to the power 10 minus 9 is 2.55. So when you run that 2.55, my handwriting today is bad. 2.55. So we know that when we round off, our answer therefore will be 3, which is true. Let's double check. So the n term will have to add 3. Let's check whether whether is 3, whether we need to add 3 or 2 within our series. Let's confirm that. So within our series, when we take 3, when we add it plus 2, it will give you 5, plus 2 give you 7, 9. So it's true. So this formula is true. It's not 3, it's not 3 but it's 2. So what we need to do within our series, the 10th term we'll have to add 2 from this series, and then we'll receive or go to receive the 10th term. So that's how you determine your the series. In terms of the series, the difference between a series and a sequence is that within a series there is an addition to the sequence that you have, and a series are just numbers that you receive within a set of data, and you need to find a common ratio within it using the common ratio of determining the value between dividing the value of a1 and a2, and also the formula for finding the nth term. This is the formula finding the nth term. So that's the difference between these two within these two geometric series and sequence. So now we'll move on to your learner guide. So I just wanna talk about the most important graph. Okay, let's start with the Cartesian plane. What's a Cartesian plane? So a Cartesian plane is your x and your y axis that you find within your graph. It's your x and y in graph, where this is your vertical and your horizontal graph. So you've got points within that 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5. Your graph will be a scale of 5. So these on this right hand side, this is your positive 1 2 3 4 5, and on your left hand side, going on your right hand side it's your positive, and on your left hand side it's your negative. So you've got your -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5, and on this side is positive, and this side going down is negative. So we've got -1, -2, and -3, and -4, and -5, and we have a positive 1 2 3 4 and 5. This is a 5, it's not a 3. So this is just a Cartesian plane. So you're given equations for you to draw or plot your graph within this Cartesian planes. For instance, you will be given, let's just extract an example from your learner guide. There's an example, there's one example that I saw which is very much interesting. Okay, this one, let's check out this one. This which we're given a straight line graph, and we had to plot. Okay, we will take, oh yeah, I see it. So we were given a straight line equation, which is a 2x plus 4. So this is a straight line equation. It's in the form of y is equals to mx plus c, where c is constant and m is the slope. So in this instance, we were given this straight line graph, and also we have our constant, which is 4, and our slope is 2. So The question was we need to draw this within this Cartesian plane. But the first thing that you need to do, you need to find your coordinates. So the easiest way to find your coordinates, one thing is that already we've got our y-intercept, which is our constant, which is our c. So within our Cartesian plane, this will form the y coordinate. So it will be 0, 0.4. So we know within our coordinates that we have 0.4. This is the constant variable, the constant coefficient, which is the number 4. Those will be 4. So we can plot it on our Cartesian plane. It's y positive 4, 0. This is x, and this is y. So within our Cartesian plane, we will plot where x is 0, this is 0, and y is 4. So we're looking for our x intercept. So in order for us to determine our x intercept, we need to derive or equate y to 0. So y will become 0. We've got 2x plus 4. When we take 4 to the next side, we'll give you minus 4 equals to 2x. When you divide everything by 2, your answer will be minus 2. So another coordinates that we have, x is minus 2 and y is 0. So when x is minus 2, this yes. So now we can plot our graph. This will be our graph, our straight line graph, simple as is. So this will be our straight line graph based on the coordinates that we have. So this will be y, the equation is y equals to 2x plus 4. So that's it in terms of creating or drawing your straight line graph. It's easy to determine your x and your y intercept. So this is just a straight line graph. You've got a parabola graph that is mentioned within your unit standard, not unit standard, learner guide. There is another graph which is called a hyperbola. It's an exponential graph, and also we have a parabola graph. So we'll just go into those two graphs and how you can plot and find your x-intercept. But first, let's just go into the properties of a hyperbola. So the function of a hyperbola is y is equals to k over x. Once again, we have two variables, x and y, but a constant term, k, has to be considered. You can see from the function y is equals to kx that we will be dealing with irrational numbers or fraction. So the terms in the function of the hyperbola, in the function y is equals to k over x, y is the dependent variable and x is the independent variable, and the k is constant, and the constant term does not change, it stays constant. Also, we can also write this function as x y is equals to k, but we need to have y to the left of the equation to work out the graph. Therefore, the equation is simplified as to eliminate x on the left hand side, as you can see on this. So drawing the hyperbola graph, the procedure for drawing the hyperbola graph stays the same as the straight line graph. We assume a value for x and y and we calculate. For instance, we were given this to solve. So now let's do this. So because of we were given an xy variable is equals to 10, so we want to remove x, should y should be a subject of the formula, so we'll have to divide this with x, divide with x, and x will cancel x, and we're left with y is equals to 10 over x. So now we want to plot this on the Cartesian plane. So x can be any number, remember, x can be any number. So we can say that x, because of now we want to plot it on our Cartesian plane, we can say x can be 1, or x can be 2, x can be 3, and so forth. So where x is 1, 2, and 3, y will be the answer for these. So for instance, y will equals to, when you take 10, when you divide it by 1, that value will give you y, your y coordinates, knowing that our x is 1 because of, based on this function that we have, or functionality that we have within our equation. So these values on your denominator will be our x-intercepts, and the answer that you get when you divide this will be your y-intercept. So when you put 2 into it, it will give you, so let's start when x is 1, let's start with the first equation. We've got 1 and 10. The second one is 2. We've got 5. And the third one is 3, and it's 3.33. So let's try and plot this on our Cartesian plane. The first one is 1, x is 1, and let's assume 10 is there, so we'll plot it here. And 2, when 2 and 5, it's somewhere here, and 3, and it's 0.33, it has to be here. So your graph will be when 4, so your graph will be something like this. Your graph will be something like that, since because of we'll be following patterns based on our x and y x values and y values. So this will be an hyperbole, as we can check on the example that we have. It's same thing, just that our it's the same that we have, just that my scale is not up to my graph, my Cartesian plane is not up to scale. I've done it ahead, but it's the same concept, it's the same graph that we have within, that we've drawn, it's the same one. And also looking on to a parabola. So a parabola can be defined with the following functions. We look at each parabola individually to support the understanding of the parabola. So the function y is equals to ax square, ax2. When you see the function ax, we immediately draw up your table and substitute x with a and we draw the graph for x2. So what I need to add from what they're mentioning is that always a is always the coefficient of the graph. So and also as it is the coefficient, it's the yeah. So the a is a slope, and it will determine whether your parabola where it starts. So if your slope is negative, your parabola will be in this shape, in a set shape. If it's positive, it will be in a smiley shape. Based on the slope, the parabola can move based on where it starts. So and also there are other functions within it. Within a parabola, there's one to many and one to one function. So let's look into one of the example that is provided. You find that you were given that we need to draw a parabola which is y is 2x 2. Is it 2x squared? It's 2x squared, not 2x2. It's 2x squared. It's 2x squared. We can substitute any values from our Cartesian plane, and by substituting any values, let's say for instance, let's make something practical. Where's that? We've got our parabola, which is equals to x squared 2x squared, and we can substitute any values for x. We are looking for y values, so for x values we've got 1 2 3 4. So we're looking for y values. We can substitute by inserting 1 to the power squared, 2 to the power squared, 3 to the power squared, 4 to the power squared. So let's quickly do that. This will give us 2. This will give us 8. This will give us 18. This will give us 32. So we've got 1 and 2. We've got 8 and no, sorry, we've got 2 and 8. We've got 2 and 8, and we've got 3 and 18, and we've got 4 and 32. So these are our coordinates based on our x-intercept. We've got positive 1 and 2, positive 1 and 2, positive 1 and 2. We've got 2 and 8. We'll assume this is 8, 2, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 2, we've got 8, we've got 3, we've got 18, and we've got 4, we've got 32. Let's assume this is 32. So our graph will be in this form. So this will be our hyperbola. Let's confirm that and check whether we did our mistakes or not. Okay, I think yes. As you can see, this is our hyperbola. That is it in terms of the hyperbola and how you can draw it. So these are just examples or more of the functions, and we've covered that. And that's it with the functions in terms of how you should go about in terms of drawing your functions and your hyperbola, your straight line graph, and the functional graph. So now looking on to the questions that you need to answer for learning unit 4 and 5. Learning unit 4 and 5. Learning unit 4 and 5, activity 16. You need to make a list of your monthly expenses, then think of the monthly expenses that your company is responsible for. Compare these two lists and describe any differences and similarities. The good thing that remember, I've done an example. Let's just go back. I've done an example in terms of planning a budget. So you can just take up this example and just draw another table where you compare to Bopang monthly expenses, based on that example that I've provided. So with this, at least I've done an example. You can just provide your example, include the company's expenses also. So that's what you're going to do for activity 16. And activity 16, you're given a budget of 1,000 rand by your company. They want you to provide lunch for a team of 5 people for 4 weeks. Plan what you provide as lunch and what you need to provide for the lunch and how much you need and what it will cost. This is simple. You just have to provide a plan for the budget of the money that you're given. Activity 18, you have made a profit of 10,000 this year. You have to decide on the best way to invest the money. Your bank offers the following choices. You can invest the money at 13% interest per annum compounded annually for 5 years, and B, you can invest the money at 12% per annum compounded monthly for 5 years. You can invest the money at 14% simple interest for 5 years. Do the necessary calculation to show which would be the best choice. So the key term here is you're given values compounded annually, which is 1 for 5 years. Also, you just have to calculate the principal amount and compound monthly for 5 years. So you need to go back from this slide. In this slide, I've explained in terms of when you're dealing with compounded interest, when it's half yearly and monthly and quarterly and daily. These are the terms that you need to familiarize yourself in terms of what you should do, whether you times 2 or 4 or 1. So you need to apply that rule for this question. So in this instance, you need to calculate compounded monthly for 5 years, and you have to calculate annually for 5 years. So annually and monthly. Number C, you need to invest monthly for 14% percent simple interest for 5 years. So the formulas are there, and we're given the principal value, which is good, and you just have to substitute and calculate. Activity 19, use the 100-meter cabbage field from the earlier exercise to explain the difference between cost price, selling price, profit and loss. So this is very simple. uh, think about your job, work out what you think the costs are there for the company to employ you. You need to consider the following: wages, salary, accommodation, and etc. After years of experience on the cattle farm, you decide to become a cattle buyer. You purchase a cattle at auditions and at auctions, and you transport them and sell them to an abattoir. So number A, you need to list the initial costs, approximate amounts that you would have in order to set up your business, list the monthly expenses that you would have, and what problems are you likely to encounter when you first start buying and selling cattle. And lastly, you need to describe how you would overcome the problems listed above. So this is very simple. You just have to follow what you need to do in terms of answering the questions given a scenario. So you have to use the example from the earlier exercise given. So that's it with learning unit 4. Learning unit 5, activity 1, you need to work out the next 5 terms and the number sequences below and explain your calculation using n as your first term. So working out, you need to find the differences. In this instance, you need to find the common difference, not the common ratio. You need to find the common difference. You need to minus the second term with the first term. When you minus the first term, it will be 290 minus 270. It's 20, and 276 minus 290, it's 14, and 255 minus 276, and you have 20, 14 and 21. In that instance, you need to determine what is the difference that they added from in order for them to get 90, the pattern that you came about with. So you'll determine the next 5 terms. As you can see, the number is decreasing from 97 to 90 to 276 and to 255. So you need to find the common difference that they minus in order for them to get these terms. Similar to this, B, C, D and E. So you'll have to work out the next 5 terms, and also you need to write down the sequence of the numbers of dots, work out the next 3 terms and explain in words how you got the answer. So as you can check, there is a pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the next, okay, the dots. So there is 1 dot, 3, 6, 10 and 15. So the difference between dots from 10 to 15 is 5. From 6 to 10 is 4. From 3 to 6 is 3. It's 2. So it's 2, 3, 6, 10. If so let's it's the one from 1 it's 2, from 1 it's 2, from 1 to 3 is 2, and from 3 to 6 it's 3, and from 6 to 10 it's 4, and from 10 to 5 for 15 is 5. So as you can check, the pattern or the series that they add, they use the difference to add the dots. So you just have to find the common difference within these numbers, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can see that the common difference, in order for you to find the next three terms, you need to add 6 dots, 7 dots, 8 dots, and so forth, in order for you to find the next terms. So you'll have to explain that in notes also. And also for activity 2, you need to draw the following straight line graphs on a Cartesian plane. The first thing that you need to do, you need to find the x-axis and your y-axis. The good thing is that we know that our constant value is our x value for our constant value is 0 and minus 2. So the graph will be somewhere this side. And please, my advice will be write the Cartesian plane in full. Write the Cartesian plane in full, and also you need to find the x values, and from there you can just draw out your graph. And in this instance, you need to sort out the graph before you can even find your x values. So in this instance, what you need to do you need to make y the subject formula for this equation, plus 4. You need to divide everything by 4. Divide everything by 4. Divide everything by 4. 4 will cancel 4. 4 will cancel 4. You get a half x plus 1. So this will be the original the equation, and from there you can just work out by getting in the graph, like getting your x coordinate. Already we've got 1, so we've got 0 and 1. So you need to get in your y coordinate. So you'll make 0, you'll make y 0 in order for you to get your x-intercept. And you've got 1 half x plus 1. Take 1 to the next side, to the next, it will give you minus 1, and you just continue doing it. It's much more easier that way. And also you'll have to do the same with C. Make y the subject formula, take x to the right hand side, will be minus, and divide everything by 2. So that's it with your formative assessment. So let's just go to your summative assessment. Summative assessment, what you need to do for activity 1, you need to draw up and complete a frequency table that you've done. For A, you need to, how many learners obtain more than 80 marks? 60% is the accepted competency marks. How many learners are not yet competent? Show the data on the step and leaf table. So these we have done. Method, what is the medium of the group? What is the mode of the group? And what is the group average for mathematics? And then you need to draw a histogram using the frequency table. And also, in an election, there was 3 candidates, A, B, C. The number of votes cast for each candidate is represented in the pie chart below. Candidate A got 170 votes. So how many votes did candidate B? So the good thing is that a pie chart, it consists of 360. I think I've explained that on the previous video. So what you need to do, the good thing is that they gave us a one angle, meaning that one angle is 120. So when you times 120 by 3, it has to give you 360. So we all know that all other angles are 120, so they're equal. So candidate A got 1170 votes. So that means candidate B also got the same votes. So he gave you the first answer. So how many people voted altogether? You just have to add based on what you were given. So what percentage of the votes went to the candidate for C? So what you need to do based on what you were given, based on what you were given. So how you get the percentage? Um, you have to, since you have added all the votes for A, B, and C, you need to divide each for C. You need to divide. You need to take C's initial vote. You need to divide it by the total times 360. The total of the total of your pie chart, and that will provide you the answer, the percentage. So that's it with number one. And number two, there are 52 playing cards in a pack of cards. What is the probability that the first card to be drawn is? You'll have to do that. And number four, a tour operator is given the following temperatures in degrees Celsius of the following places in South Africa in the middle of winter. These are the temperatures in Celsius. You need to draw a bar graph to represent this data. And B, what is the range of this data, and what is the median temperature, and what is the mean temperature. You'll have to do that. For learning unit 2, you have to calculate, you need to estimate the following answers and round off to the nearest round figure. So you'll calculate this and round them to the nearest figure. And activity 2, you need to convert the following into percentages. I've got 5. And also you need to calculate the following. So you need to do that. It's about A up until F. And that's it for learning unit 2. Learning unit 3, you need to draw a straight line in your workbook and with the following lengths. So you just have to draw this straight lines using these lengths. And activity 11, you need to convert the following, convert 600 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit, and you need to convert B 100,000 Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. You need to calculate the area of the field of 50 meters length and 50 meters breadth. A tractor drives 48 kilometers in 2 hours. What is the velocity? A train travels at 120 kilometer per hour for 3 hours. How far did it travel? I need to convert 10 kg to kg, 5 centimeter to meters, and so forth. And activity 2, calculate the size of the angles marked AH. You need to calculate these angles, and then you need to identify the following quadrilaterals. You need to identify them. And activity 13, a farmer needs to secure a pole of 60 meter with a rope. The rope needs to be tied to the top of the pole. You need to draw a diagram that helps you. So you just have to draw a diagram based on what you were given. Also, activity 14, a circular irrigator has a diameter of 50 meters. You need to calculate the perimeter circumference of the irrigated area, the surface area of the irrigated part of the field. And also, a shipped tank on a farm has the following dimensions: length is 5 meter, breadth is 2 meter, and depth is 1.2 meter. You need to calculate the volume of water that is the tank can hold. um, Activity 3, a farmer wants to fence off a piece of land as a paddock for his horses. There are, however, certain problems. One side of the land is cut off due to overhead power lines. On another side, there is a very dangerous hole. See the diagram below to visualize the land. The shaded area represents the paddock that can create. So you need to calculate the length of the wire he will need for the perimeter and the surface area of the paddock. And also, you are given a statement. You need to calculate the surface area of the roof. If 5 liter of the of keep drip point cost about 15 meters squared of the roof, how many 5 liter tins of paint must he buy? You just have to do your calculations. In activity, what do you need to do for activity 15? You need to draw up a budget for the expenses for the first month. So you're given a statement, you just have to draw up a budget for that. Learning unit 4, uh, you just have to make a list for your monthly expenses, and you need to compare okay, so this is similar to your workbook you were given. Yeah, these answers are retrieved from your formative assessment. So what you have written on your formative assessment, you can just paste it on this side. Same thing with activity 18. I extracted. Same thing, activity 19. Number 2, think about your job, work out what you think the cost out to company to employ you. You need to consider the following wages. These are same thing. You just have to extract your answers from your formative and paste it to your summative. Unit 5, same thing. This is what you need to do. Same thing. Just have to extract your answers from your formative to summative, and that's it uh, with unit standard 900 9007, and we are done with skills program 1, basic mathematics. We've covered everything. These are just basic mathematics. You just need you to apply logic and just go through your learner guide and we unpack the functionalities and the concept and the principles of each topic that they would like you to unpack or to answer. So with your functions, the calculations, there's no much calculation. You just have to find your x-intercepts and your y-intercepts. I've managed to provide the easier way to provide your x and your y-intercepts, and in most cases your financial maths, your compound interest and your simple interest, you need to just follow the formula accordingly and substitute an answer. And within your budget, you just have to extract what you are given and calculate, and your 3D, your perimeters, your circumferences, that in your learner guide you have provided formulas. So thank you. uh, Thank you, and thank you for tuning in, and stay blessed.